Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it may be for you, and welcome to my humble abode. This is the Ladybug Laboratory podcast. I am coming to you from Thursday, August 3rd, and my name is Lily. I'll be your host for today. We're going to go through a lovely adventure of knitting and sewing and crafty goodness, and if you would like to find me in all the places, it's in the down bar, Instagram, Ravelry, and there is a Ravelry group which has the finished objects and chatter threads for the Made For Me make-along, in which you make something for yourself with no guilt. Sorry, it's getting a little bit warm. So yeah, go ahead and join the group, post in the threads. We're overdue for prizes, so I'm going to be pulling quite a few in a little bit. Yeah, I think that's about it. Cool. Today we have a few segments to sort of make up a little bit for last week. So first is finished objects, then June totals, a non-yarny craft, and a topic. So let's go on. Alright, so for finished objects, I'm going to start with the finished objects that you have seen before. So first up, I have my Falling Leaves or Fading Autumn scarf. So this is the scarf. It is knit with Aran Weight yarn, and this is the Backyard Leaves pattern by Annie Modessit, maybe. I knit it on US 9s, which is a 5.5 millimeter, and I used Luette Riverstone in the color Caribou, Island Moss, and Citrus Orange. Now, I bought this yarn a long time ago. I think it would have been 2011 or 2012 when I went on a trip with my school to Tennessee and stopped at a local yarn stop and I got some yarn. Now, when you last saw this, technically I had started it. I had done that wedge that is inside of those progress keepers. So the way that this pattern works is you knit the two sides and then you graft them together. But I sort of changed it up a little bit, so I knit down one side and I did, I had twice as much green as I had the other two colors. So I did, I believe it was 6 or 7 repeats in the green, and then one fewer repeats in the orange. And then I went back, and instead of knitting it and grafting it later, I just picked up from a provisional cast on. And I did another 6 or 7 repeats in the green, and then one fewer in the brown. And I'll give you a close-up so that you can see sort of the patterning in this. It makes these beautiful leaves. I don't know if it's focusing. I hope it is. I decided not to fade for my transitions because I didn't think it was going to work particularly well, and on top of that, I mean, it was easier, and the colors aren't really fade worthy. If you look, that's the ends with the 2 different points. So, the other reason that I decided not to fade is because of the way that I intend to wear this. So, what you would do, you can wrap this around, okay? So I can do this, maybe even wrap it around again. And if you see, what happens is the green ends up around my neck and the orange and the brown fall down. Now this yarn is a little bit itchy, but it is very, very warm. So I would prefer to have it in a way that it doesn't really move as much. So what I plan to do when it's not the summer is fold it in half and pull the loop through. And what that gives me is a loop of green with brown and orange falling down from it. Which I really love because it gives the appearance of autumn, you know, the way that the colors naturally fall down from the trees. Now, I did this for the Color and Life podcast, Double Dog Dare, Knit Along, and this was John Michael's dare, and his dare was to do a lace pattern and follow the pattern and nothing but the pattern, so help him yarn. And I didn't do exactly what the pattern called for. I'm sorry, John Michael. It is what it is, right? But I'm pretty happy with it. I finished this on my trip, and I mentioned this before, but normally I don't bring sort of bulky knitting on a trip. But in this case, my husband was leaving about a week before me, and we were going to have a lot of extra room in his suitcase. So I just finished it and then sent the finished product back with him. So yeah, that is my backyard leaves, falling leaves, fading autumn, whatever, scarf that I will not be wearing for several months. Now, next up, I'm going to skip around a little bit. While I was on my trip, the first place that we stopped at was a friend's, and I realized that I had forgotten a washcloth, and I really need a washcloth. I need it. I need something to scrub my skin with. So I went to Walmart and I picked up some sugar and cream, or peaches and cream yarn, just the generic yarn, and I picked up a gold and a navy, and I knit in an evening. Each one took me probably about 40 minutes. These two washcloths. So this is Intarsia, and the other one, I did it the other way around. It is very faded because the colors kind of, you can almost see the blue is like fading onto the yellow. This one I've used, this one I haven't, so, which is unfortunate because I actually really liked this one better, but it is what it is. So I made these. I wanted to try Intarsia. I've wanted to try it for a long time. These were done on US size 8s, which is a 5mm, and I used the Intarsia Insanity pattern by Laura Tejada, and that pattern calls for, it's about twice as big, so you have like 4 boxes in different colors of the Intarsia panels, and I just did one instead. Yeah. And I talked about how I had underpacked my knitting for the trip, and I did that on purpose because I knew I was going to get knitting and whatever, but I just brought my interchangeable set of Chiogus, both my socks and my normal size ones. And it was perfect because I could have any needle that I wanted. So I did these two. Next up, another one that you have seen before, I know we're kind of jumping around, are my dark matter socks. So last time that you saw them, I was right here. I was working a toe up sock, and so I was only about here. So I finished the first sock, and I finished the second sock. So this was some great vanilla knitting to have. I used, I just did a plain vanilla sock with a wedge toe, 68 stitches, and an afterthought heel. The yarn was String Theory Colorworks in the Continuum Self-Striping base, and the colorway was Ultraviolet Catastrophe. So, if you'll notice, it starts with, this first one started with the purple, and then it went to black, blue, purple, black, all the way up, and it ends at the purple right before the heel, and the heel goes down to the purple, and then black afterward all the way up, and ends at the purple and the black. And I was debating about whether or not I was going to do this, and I decided to do it, and I'm really glad that I did. The first sock I pulled from the inside of the ball. The second sock I pulled from the outside of the ball. So it goes in the opposite direction, and I did it on purpose so that the black stripes lined up. So it starts with blue and goes all the way to blue, black, purple to blue, all the way up to blue and black. So if you look, the black stripes line up, and it's just the purple and the blue that are backwards from each other. And I love that. I love the aesthetic. I'm really glad that I ended up deciding to switch them, because I think especially because the blue and the purple kind of go together and the black sort of stands out, and the fact that it's just those 3 colors and so it was exactly mirrored, I think it works out really well. I don't know if it would have worked out as well for another given self-striping pattern, but I'm glad that I did it for this one. So yeah, these were knit Magic Loop on, sorry, my show notes are down here, that's why I keep looking down, on US 1.5, so just a 2.5 millimeter. I'm noticing that with Magic Loop, I don't know what it's called, but it's like the opposite of laddering, where it's like tighter where you join instead of looser. I don't know. If anybody knows what to do about that, let me know, or what it's called. But yeah, so I just did a generic Afterthought Heel Vanilla Sock 1x1 rib, and yeah, Judy's Surprisingly Stretchy Bind Off, and Judy's Magic Cast On. Cool. So those are my Dark Matter socks. Those are for my brother, by the way. And the last one that I'm going to show you while I'm sitting in this place right here is Chicha's Wrap. You may have seen me wearing this before. Yes, this is a finished object, and no, you have not seen it. This is the Golden Orchids pattern, and I was doing a Golden Orchids knit along with some friends of mine. And they convinced me to try a gradient. And the yarns that I picked were by Retool Yarns, and it was the Yay, I'm a Llama Again colorway, which is from the Emperor's New Groove, if you have not seen that. And so what I decided to do is I was going and I was trying to get in an extra repeat of the body before I started the outside, and I didn't have quite enough yarn, and I did my spreadsheets and figured that out. It wasn't going to work. Which meant that as I was approaching the bottom, I didn't have, I was getting to the purple. I had to cut this one off early and go to this lighter purple, and I barely got any of the dark purple in. And the decision that I ended up making was to just do the very edge in the dark purple. And I love that decision. I'm so happy with it. I think it gives a great effect just at the end there. Now the beads were from a friend of mine, Danielle of Silky Studio. And I was working on this, and I had worked on it on a train ride by myself, and I got to the point where I needed the beads right when I got to visit her, and I didn't have any, and she had some extras lying around that were perfect. So yeah, I added those. I didn't adapt any of the main pattern, but I did change a bit when I got to the end, and it's a free pattern, so I'm going to share a little bit of what I did. Basically, I added an extra couple of eyelet rows at the end, and I did a picot bind off, and I put beads on every other picot. I love the way it turned out. I have all the notes on my project page of specifically what picot bind off I did and how I did the eyelets and stuff like that. But I'm really happy with it. It's smaller than I wanted it to be, but you know, that's life, right? It doesn't really work as well as a shawl because it is so small, but I can definitely wear it like this when it gets cooler out. Now, the reason that this is called Chicha's Wrap is because if you have seen Emperor's New Groove, Chicha is Paco's wife. Sorry, my camera stopped. I don't know exactly where it stopped, but I was basically just talking about Paco's wife and how awesome she is, and she wears a shawl in the movie, And when I knew I was doing the Emperor's New Groove, I thought, well, that's perfect, right? So that's what I've named it. And I don't think this is really a shawl that she would wear because it has the beads, but you know what? Whatever. I like it. So yeah. So that's all of our finished objects. Alright, so next up we've got June totals. I have not completely finished my July totals yet, so I won't be going over those today. But I basically have to weigh some minis after doing some squares in my blanket. But we left off in May with 5,000-ish more yards brought in this year than taken out. So in June, I added another 4,000 yards. It's because I was on a yarn crawl. It's fine. I don't know why I feel like I have to rationalize this. It's okay to add things to my stash. I think a lot of it is that I am running out of space for it, and it's really impeding my ability to craft in this space. It'll be better now that I have a craft room, but I don't want to fill up the whole craft room. And I also, like, I bought these for a reason. I really want to use them, and I have this constant, like, I can't wait until I get to use that, and, you know, I keep adding to my list of things I want to do. So a lot of this, I think, is more to motivate me and remind myself that I do actually use the things that I buy, although it's not doing a great job right now. But all that is to say, I added another 4,500-ish yards, and I withdrew about 1,500 yards, which puts me at a net 8,000-ish yards more in stash than I had at the beginning of 2017. Things are not looking great for July, but I have high hopes for August. Maybe. But you know what? If not, it's fine. It's fine. I just enjoy seeing what I've done over the past year. So yeah. And at that point, I'm going to talk about sewing. So, if you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen this, and I said that I was making what was easily the most adorable project I have ever made, ever. And here it is. So, I'm really happy with this. This is a kitten sling that I made. It goes like so, and you wear your kitten. And I didn't follow a specific pattern for this. I just kind of made it up based on some pictures that I saw online. And so what it is this fleece. This is a Ladybug fleece. And I had it left over from like the second thing I ever sewed, which was a pair of PJ pants for me. And this mesh I also had left over from, I think I was trying to make a screen for something. I don't remember. And basically, literally everything in this, I just pulled out of stash and whipped this together in an evening. So what I did is, the mesh is 2 layers, so I folded it over, and I sewed this red bias binding around it. Now this is just the mesh, I haven't attached it to anything yet. And after I did that, I cut out this fleece, this whole thing, okay, and I sewed the edges of the mesh in, not including this band on the top, okay, so it's just flat and it's sewed in. Then I made a tunnel out of the fleece and put some elastic in it, and folded the panel in half, so I had panel of fleece with mesh and elastic, and then I folded that in half and sewed along the top. Covered that in this bias binding to help hold it still. And as I did that, I added some pleats in the back because the elastic was shrinking it and the pleats helped make it even. Then I pleated a little bit on the sides and very messily sewed these bands on, which I made by just making strips of fabric, sewing down the side and seaming them together. And I've tied it in a slip knot, which means that it is adjustable, which is so cool. And yeah, this is my kitten sling. So I can make it tighter or looser, however I so choose. And I can probably wear it like a skirt too if I wanted, but it seems a little weird. So yeah, I'm really happy with this. I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is the kittens love fleece. The bad news is they don't like the sling. And that's because I did something about the way that I made it means that when they go in, they don't get to just sit on the bottom, they get pressed against the mesh, which they don't like. So I'm gonna have to figure out a way. I think I'm gonna have to unpick these, which is really unfortunate because that's like 5 layers of fleece and it took so much work to get them down. But I think I'm gonna have to unpick that and fold it differently so that they're not thrown against the mesh so much, because otherwise they would really love this. I will touch on the kittens a little bit at the end if you are curious. So yeah, I'm happy with this. I'm happy that I just came up with it. I wish it worked better, so I'm gonna see what I can do about it, but no guarantees. So next up, I'm going to talk a little bit about a topic that is crafting related. It is not any specific project. You can stay or go, but if you're heading out, thanks for stopping by, and I hope you have a wonderful day. So the last thing to touch on today is my topic, and for today's topic, I know I haven't done a topic in a while because life has been a little nuts, and I figured I would talk about that. Crafting and stress. How do they go together? And the answer is I don't know. I have no idea. And this is something I'm trying to think through for myself. Because I enjoy crafting. But sometimes I find myself spending a lot of time crafting. And then there are things that are still on my to-do list that I haven't gotten done. And I'm more stressed out because I still haven't gotten them done. And sometimes I stress over finishing crafting projects in time. But at the same time, it can be really relaxing to just sit down and work on something. How do you guys find a balance? How do you use crafting to help you with your stress levels instead of contributing or hindering or exacerbating? Do you do that? Do you find that crafting stresses you out or that it makes you less stressed? Does anybody else? I feel like I swing on this pendulum, between crafting causes me lots of stress and then I don't craft at all anymore and then it becomes relaxing. And then I craft more and then it causes me stress. And I would like to not be perpetually on that pendulum. I mean, I'd like to stay on one side. Am I alone in having that struggle? Yeah, I don't know. I'm very curious to find out. Because I've read all of these, studies that they've done that we've all heard about how crafting is an antidepressant. And I find that to be very true sometimes. But sometimes I find myself using crafting as an excuse to stress out. Almost. It's hard to explain. It's like I set these goals for myself, for this is X amount of crafting that I'm going to finish this week. Because I try and cram as much in as possible, and then other things get shoved to the wayside, and I end up feeling more stressed because I'm trying to do too much crafting. But it's just because I have all these yarns I want to work with, and all these fabrics I want to work with, and these patterns that I want to do, and sweaters I want to wear, and I want them. I don't craft because I don't want to. I do it because I want them. And I know that sounds selfish, but I don't know. Do I need to get over that? I mean, I pick a project because I want it. And so I want to finish it, and I get really frustrated when I don't finish it. And I get really frustrated when I spend a lot of time working on it and I don't finish it, and then the house is a mess because I haven't done laundry in 3 weeks. Not quite 3 weeks, but... How do you find balance between stress and crafting? Do you set yourself goals for crafting, or do you just let it be? Do you stress about crafting, or is crafting an escape from stress? I'd love to hear what you think. You can let me know in the Ravelry thread or down below, or just send me a private message. I know sometimes I go off on these tangents and I feel like I'm bearing my soul to you guys and how self-centered that is. And let me know if you don't want to hear this anymore. If you don't want me to come up with topics, that's fine. Either way, just let me know. Do you like this? Yeah. And how do podcasts play into your stress and your crafting? How do you consume those? I'm curious. I'm curious to see what the overall feeling in the crafting community is about how stress and crafting go together. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts. And that's all for now. I'm going to add in a little video and pictures of the kittens at the end for those of you that are very excited for that. I had a lot of people ask me about the kittens. They're doing fine. We did end up getting... So Poe was the one that you guys met last week. We did end up catching Ray, his sister. And she is definitely not as socialized as Poe. She doesn't like being held. I mean, it took a long time to get Poe to the point that he's at. But Ray's a little harder, even off the bat. But she's not as malnourished, which is good. And she's also been flea treated. And yeah, so we're working with her. And Poe is a lot happier now that he has his sister back. And so is Ray. So I'm going to throw in a video at the end of Poe playing and a video or a picture of Poe and Ray together. So thank you guys for stopping by. Thank you for checking me out or returning, and let me know what it is that you look forward to so I can do that in the future. All right, thanks.